Some GameCube games that were released late in the system's life around mid to late 2006 have stickers on the shrink wrap that advertise being playable on the Wii, covering up the Only 4 label on the corner of the box art. You can spot it in an internal GameCube box art style guide as well. In some cases, it seems that even clearance copies were given this sticker, if this copy of Super Smash Bros. Melee on eBay is any indication. Still less cursed than GameCube box art without a triangle label in the corner at all though. That just doesn't look right. Sorry guys. This is the Hori SGB Commander, a controller released in Japan specifically for the Super Game Boy add-on for the SNES and Super Famicom. In addition to replicating the feel of the original Game Boy buttons, by switching the controller mode to SGB mode, you can access buttons that can mute the game, or even slow down the game speed. This is something that would be humanly impossible to toggle on a regular SNES controller, as what the SGB Commander does is basically a macro that quickly inputs a string of frame-perfect LNR inputs to toggle these functions. If you hold up on the D-pad while turning on the Super Game Boy, you can also access an additional speed setting that speeds up the game at the cost of some graphical glitches. Nintendogs for the DS was released in 6 different versions, each with different starter breeds and exclusive items. One of them, Shiba Inu and Friends, was only released in Japan, while the Best Friends edition I have here was exclusive to several DS and DS Lite bundles in the US. It features a list of starter breeds that are a combination of popular picks from all the other versions, while sharing the same version exclusive items as Staksund and Friends. You may note that the 3DS system transfer animations for moving content between systems feature Pikmin, and that's also the case for moving content from a Wii to a Wii U. But the system transfer animation for moving content between 2 Wii U's actually features its own unique animation with original Denpa-men-ish characters, complete with an actual plot of sorts as it progresses. I won't spoil it here in case you want to check it out for yourself, it's very cute and neat. When I was writing the script for my video about every Nintendo stylus, I ran into a sort of dilemma. What do you exactly call this part of the stylus? I eventually settled on calling it a nub to distinguish it from the tip, which is the end you'd normally tap the screen with. And turns out that's exactly what Nintendo calls it in the manual for the new 3DS. But hey, thanks to a stylus-related patent filed by Nintendo back in 2010, we can now formally identify this part as the engagement portion. And here's what the rest of the parts are called. Totally not suggestive at all. Some Capcom and Konami NES game manuals like Ghosts and Goblins, Mega Man, Castlevania, and Gradius show a distinct Famicom controller design instead of an NES one in their control section. Here's a list of NES game manuals that have this blunder so you can point and laugh. Before the 2 special edition Game & Watches themed to the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda were released, the first modern release in the Game & Watch line, if you could call it that, was the 2010 reissue of Ball released exclusively for Club Nintendo members. It's more faithful to the originals than the latest models, but all 3 of these modern Game & Watches share one thing in common. Their packaging has the words "Special Thanks to You" printed on the inside tab. As you may know, Nintendo started as a manufacturer of card games and board games like Hanafuda and playing cards. Since their pivot to video games though, they've still occasionally sold their old tabletop products, like Hanafuda cards, mahjong sets, shogi boards, go boards, and most notably playing cards, featuring standard designs or Nintendo characters. In fact, you can commission Nintendo to create playing cards or Hanafuda cards with original set designs. Before you get your hopes up though, it's mainly aimed at companies placing bulk orders for marketing purposes, since the minimum order is 3,000 pieces and you have to contact them to work out the details. The ending screen in Super Mario 64 is actually fully re-rendered for the European PAL version of the game to accommodate additional languages. And notably, the sign on the cake is oval-shaped in the European version instead of being rectangular. In fact, the entire render has a slightly different camera angle. The IQ version, on the other hand, uses an edit of the original Japanese and US render instead. And sadly, in 3D All-Stars, the ending screen remains the English original regardless of language setting. And finally, Shiho Tsuji is a pixel art veteran whose notable credits include the Fire Emblem series and the 2D pixel Kirby platformers from the GBA and DS. One of the other miscellaneous games they've worked on though is Adventure Time Hey Ice King Why'd You Steal Our Garbage for the DS and 3DS, which may explain why the treasure chest sprites from that game look eerily similar to the ones from Kirby Superstar Ultra. But hey, that's just a theory. Again.